What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wrestle Wellbeing. I'm your host, Jim, and this is first on my channel. 2 videos in one day, 2 interviews in one day. I've got to say, I'm really blessed with the fantastic community that I've got around me. So it's another Unseen Battles episode, and it's a mental health conversation with a very special guest today. But before we get into that, I'm going to play a quick graphic from some very good friends at the Hot Tag Foundation. If you guys don't know what the Hot Tag Foundation is, it is a non-profit organisation based here in the UK that aims to share wrestling with children across Britain, particularly those in need. So I'll play the clip and then I'll introduce my guest and then we'll get into the video. So there you go, guys. That is the Hot Tag Foundation. If you want to go check those guys out, they're on Facebook and Instagram. Go give us some love. Say that Jim sent you, and hopefully you can learn some more about the Hot Tag Foundation. Anyway, so on to today's video, I'm joined by a very special guest, someone that I've been waiting quite a while to get on the show, and it is Joe, or as everyone will know him, Erin Jacobs. Thanks for joining me, Joe.
Nice to join you, really. I always enjoy doing any podcast that someone asks me to do, especially something to do with mental health.
Yeah, so I know I've got in touch with Joe through my friend Liam at the Magical Wrestling Podcast. I believe you've done a couple of videos with Liam. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah. Just recently did the free for free.
How do you find it being on Liam's podcast? Is it how would you summarize Liam's podcast in a couple of words?
I suppose guest led is probably the right sort of term to say his podcast. It's very sort of guest led, like whoever's on is going to be kind of leading the conversation for the free for free, and then like there's a good kind of in-depth interview that he does like beforehand. He's got kind of like a good system going, I think.
Yeah, sound mate, sound. So today's video is very much like the interview I've done with Drew Ashland and the one that I did literally just a couple hours ago with Alfie and Dee. If you haven't checked those out, guys, make sure you pause this, go watch that, and then come back and watch this. It's going to be a really good talk this with Joe here. I'm really excited to do this. Joe, if you're ready, let's get straight into it.
Yeah, no worries, yeah.
So the way that we're going to start this, mate, is my questions are split into 2 categories. The first one is your wrestling journey, so how you got into wrestling and what have you. And then the second part is where we get a bit deep and talk about your struggles and your battles with mental health.
Yeah, no worries, right?
Sammy. So start off with, mate, what initially drew you to professional wrestling? Is it something that's always been a childhood dream, or is it something that you got into later on in life?
It's always been the kind of like common trope of that it was a childhood dream from when I was 8 and stuff like that. I think what drew me to it was probably the physicality of it. Watching people like Paul Orndorff wrestle and seeing his physicality and the way you'd like kind of he'd just go out there and beat people up, really. there wouldn't be really any sort of like leniency about it when you kind of watch his style, which is probably like around the same sort of style as Fit Finlay and stuff, really. just a sort of really roughneck style, and everything sort of lent into and done with meaning.
Sound. Is that sort of like how you try to base your character around, or who would you say inspires you and your character?
Well, the first character I had, Joe Rage, that I still kind of do now and again, is if I can find the show to do it on, really, is just the, I don't know, I kind of call it like the meat and potatoes wrestler. Like, you know, he's got the trunks on, the knee pad covers and the boots, and that's all you kind of get, and maybe some wrist tape and stuff like that, and everything's kind of done as a wrestler kind of way, in that kind of like 80s sort of throwback. I'd probably categorize Joe Rage as that. And then with Erin, that was something that was originally brought to me from the owner of North, Andrew. When he first booked me, it was for Erin, and he kind of came up with the jumping off point of American Psycho. And when I was trying to think of it, like how I'm gonna kind of represent this character in a wrestling way, because it can't just be too on the nose. So I was coming up with Rory Coyle and at the time Bass Ban, Big Lee. We were just like mates in Rampage's school, and we were kind of coming up together, and we were coming up with like how this Erin character would be best portrayed. We wanted to kind of do it. I wanted to do a good job for Andrew and give him something that he could kind of chew on. And it was Bass Ban that actually came up with Erin Jacobs in the first place, because I was thinking about stuff that was far too close to American Psycho. I was thinking of like Joseph Bateman, and like, if I think one point I even said like Patrick Porritt, which just sounded completely Irish. So I'm glad I never went kind of like in that route. And when he said Erin Jacobs to me, I found the name Erin as kind of obscure for a wrestler. I hadn't really seen it that often, and especially not on a male. So we kind of just went with the idea that the common watcher would think that it was weird. And that's kind of the way I came about with Erin, is thinking of the outside of the box, not trying to like just be a common trope of like a psychopath, and really coming at things from a different perspective and angle if I possibly could.
So, mate. So I've actually watched quite a few of your matches, to be fair, especially when you portray Erin Jacobs, and I sort of get like I don't know if this is intentional, but I sort of get like a Bray Wyatt fiend type of character sort of thing, you know, with the quite intense hard hitting moves, obviously quite physical maneuvers as well. Is that something that kind of went through your head when you came up with the character, or is it just coincidence?
I think some of it is coincidence, depending on what's kind of picked up there. But like, there's some intentional stuff with the style of the way that they wrestle. Everything's kind of outside of the box as well, and just like the sheer physicality of people from the Wyatt family, like your Luke Harpers and stuff, like the way that they kind of go into moves is as physical as I wanted to be. At first, I kind of went down a Brian Pillman approach of like character wise, and there was just a lot of like TV and movie inspirations from it. Because when I do promos, the first set of promos that I used to do was something recorded, all these kind of split little footages that are just cryptic ways of portraying a message, and then a voiceover just quietly done as like a calm kind of Hannibal Lecter type
Yeah, so yeah, definitely, mate. Sound that, mate. So, can you describe your training experience when you first started, and what was it like stepping into the ring for the first time for you?
Um, a big thing for me is like acceptance and sort of some sort of like appreciation or green light that I belong in some way. So that's what I got from my first experiences in the ring, and it's a feeling that kind of stays with me to this point. So I know that I'm doing the right thing. Um, I think if any of that started to wither away in some sort of way, that's when I'd be thinking about hanging up my boots. But like initially, that's the feeling that I kind of went with and brought me to actually do it. The initial points of training with Chris Diamond at EPW was intense because there was a lot of drills going on. You'd have to run the ring, run the ropes quite a lot. Like what I would say now is a lot um, for a beginner to do. But like Chris was like ruthless at that point. He was you could feel the passion coming from him when he taught you, and I think that's what translated to me because I picked up off that, and I think that that's the kind of trainer that I kind of bounce off is somebody who's a lot more physical and passionate about this. And I know that there's a lot of passionate teachers everywhere, but there's something about the passion physicality of that style that draws me to a trainer of that kind of standard. Really, that's why I went with Tom later and Bram. Tom and Bram. I went with Tom later, and then with Rampage. Um, I really, really wanted to get training in with Drew before I left as well, and I was quite close to that. I remember having the conversation with Tom and saying like, "Oh, I just missed him," and he's like, "Yeah, you just missed him."
Oh, but
Which, yeah, it's because I look at that era of say like All Star and stuff like that when they were just about to go to NXT for the first time, and I kind of look at it as like, oh, that's the big three physical wrestlers of that time of that generation. Then later you've got like echoes of that from people like Nathan Cruz.
yeah, I saw that, mate. It's
Yeah,
I bet that must have been quite like surreal, thinking that you could have met Drew and that you could have possibly sparred with him and obviously learned from him, because that's a big name in the wrestling business, obviously. So that must
yeah,
have been quite.
yeah. I mean, I'd met him a few times through Tom anyway because they were like best friends, and so was Rampage and stuff. Um, but like to have had him as another mentor to kind of add to that would have been like really special for me. I mean, maybe down the line I can get to do that, but like we'll see.
You never know. Might see Erin Jacobs appear on WWE TV helping out Drew McIntyre win his next world title.
I don't know, man. Like uh, after nearly 20 years, I kind of look at it and just think like, is a contract realistic? Not is it possible, because it's possible. It's possible for anybody to get a contract, really. But like, is it realistic at this point of my career and my age and everything like that? So like, and how long I've been doing this and whatever toll it's kind of done to my body. Um, maybe it. I think it all depends on like the momentum that I get from like this year, next year, and stuff like that. If I start to gain momentum from something, then it would be something that I'd start to focus on more. And because I'm very sort of goal orientated, if there's something there for me to run at, I'll take it. But if I don't have anything to cross the road to, I won't. I'll just be like, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you mean, mate. So what have been some of your most memorable moments or matches in your career so far?
For me, memorable stuff is always like stuff that I'm doing with my friends. It's stuff where I get to like build a moment with somebody who I've spent years around in the business. I think like the title reign and match that we eventually had, me and Rory Coyle, at BWR was something a little bit special. I feel like we had something there, and you know there could have been a continuance of that in some way. I think that the momentum I started to build in North is always something that's like something that sticks in my head. I can't seem to let go of that. And I think it's just when there's stuff left on the table, I have an issue with just kind of like letting go of it, because I feel like, oh, there's something we could have got out of this, or there's something we could have done here. But for like memorable stuff, there's a lot of things that I've done in Fight Factory, like my feud with Dutch, that I quite enjoyed, because it was interesting to me watching the fans start to like Erin. I always find that weird when people start to be like weirded out, scared, or in some way hating Erin, and then suddenly it'll turn to like people like Erin now, and I always find it so strange because I'm not doing anything for you to like. Like,
you can never guess what the crowd's going to be like, can you? One minute they're booing you, next minute they're cheering you. So it's you've got to. So how do you? What's going through your head when that sort of thing happens, and how do you cope with that, or how do you try and obviously swing the crowd back to booing you, sort of thing?
I mean, so when they started to like Erin because Dutch said no, don't eat him, and then they started chanting eat him, I just remember turning to Dutch and maybe calling him a bastard or something like that. I was like, you bastard, you've just turned this right over. And then we ended up becoming like the friendship and stuff, and going through that. It's more just funny, and it's like, right, okay, and something shifts in my head, and I'm like, right, so now we have to start doing this instead now. So take out this that could have possibly happened, and now input this, because the way I always build story in my head is but therefore this that, and I never use and, because I don't like to put and into a storyline, because if I'm saying that this is happening and then this happens, it kind of kills the continuity of it all. Whereas like if you say, okay, Erin wants this, but this is happening, therefore Erin needs to do this, then that. So then it all kind of correlates and leads us back to that at the start. And that's why I've tried to kind of lead with any sort of story that I've had with Erin in Fight Factory, because I can then look at whoever we're going against and say, well, if we're doing this because of this, then they can go off and jump off and do that. And I always try and leave something for the guys who we're going against, so that like they can bounce off us and do something, rather than just like, oh, they've lost to us, or they've they've beat us, and then what? if they can bounce off us and go to another arc of something that already exists, then it makes it so everybody's benefiting.
So that's quite a complex way of thinking. Is that something that kicks in relatively quick in your career, or is that something that you've always had, or is that something that you've had to learn, sort of thing?
I think I've had to learn that over a long period of time. I don't think that that's something that I started to think. I think it's through meeting, it's through speaking to people like Chris, like Frankie Sloan, like Nathan Cruz, Rampage, you know, Tom Latimer. The list goes on to kind of broaden your perspective and your mind's eye about how stuff is supposed to work. And then even just like, it doesn't have to be wrestling. Like, you can look at the way that stories are written in movies and the way that stories are written in series. And that will give you a guide as to how your own story should work, especially like when it comes to series where the episode is 20 to 30 minutes. That's the perfect format for a match, really, because like you only have to condense that slightly simpler to then make it fit into the length of a match. And that's all you're doing, is just simplifying stuff slightly. The way that I had the light bulb for that, well, it's not really like I invented it. Like, I got it off South Park. That's how they tell their stories.
I did not think that it's from those guys. That's incredible. That.
Yeah. Like, I'm obsessed with South Park. I love it. It's the best animation that there is. But when I was looking at like the backstage stuff, I was getting obsessed with like voiceover and stuff like that, because I'd really love to do voiceover if I could. But that's by the by. Like, when I was watching stuff like that, like, it led me on to like a backstage thing of when they were doing a seminar at a university or something like that, and he was saying this is how to tell short stories, and this is how to tell stories in a condensed fashion through even longer ways if you need to. And they always go with that rule of thumb, because if you do that, then you can add anything into it and it doesn't become an and kill it. You can have like multiple 5 stories running at the same time.
That's brilliant, mate. To hear how you've managed to manifest that sort of mentality from something like South Park, it's quite an incredible thing. So just alluding to, you obviously mentioned that you had a world title match with one of your friends. How do you prepare for a big match like that, both physically and mentally? Is it something that takes you quite a while, or do you sort of like lock into the mentality of, I'm in a title match, this is what I've got to do, it's a big match sort of thing?
I was brought into this business of that, like, the belt is just a prop. That's all it is. It's part of the show. You're out there to do a job. Now you're just slightly higher in that job. But I will say that there are some companies out there where there's a lot of respect and there's a lot of admiration that comes along with getting a title from that company, like with FFW and stuff. I think it's whether you're wanting to run stories or do like camp shows and stuff. But like, even camp shows, they have their hierarchy in like belts and things like that. But like with EPW, it's basically just like, you're going to be on the poster now. You're probably going to get a lot of bookings, so there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. And then with stories, it becomes even infinitely more profound, because now you're not just having this title match, you're having this title match with a belt that used to be owned by such and such person, who's somebody that you looked up to, and all that kind of stuff.
That's all, mate. So So when you found out that you were going to be winning the title, I asked Drew Ashland the same question. Did you feel more pressure to deliver on the match, and then obviously when you won it, did you feel as though you'd got more, like you said, more responsibility, was that more pressure, or did you kind of thrive in that pressure of being seen as the top guy, sort of thing?
I think with titles that I've won off Chris does a very good job at not putting too much pressure on you. But like essentially, you're going to be on the posters, you're going to be advertised for a show, so there is like an undoubted pressure that you put upon yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of wrestlers do. There's a lot of pressure that puts on there because you'll do a few shows and you'll start to get the hang of it, and then you'll start to create a standard in your head, or at least like if you're competitively natured, or if you really care about like the business and the industry and stuff, then you start to put a pressure on yourself. You'll start to criticize your own matches, and you'll start to put this needless pressure on as well, because you start to think of yourself, oh, I'm not just Joe anymore. I'm Joe who's trained by Rampage. I'm Joe who's trained by Tom. I'm Joe who's trained by Chris. I'm Joe who's trained by all these other people that have had influence on you. And you don't want to mess their name up in some way. So there is pressure with that sort of stuff, because you put that needless pressure on yourself. And I don't think anybody needs to. But it's something that can't be helped sometimes, depending on how much you care about what you're doing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one, mate. Obviously, because, like you say, you're wanting to show that you care and about the business, obviously, but then you also want to show that the people that have trained you, you want to show them respect. You want to show them love and care, that what they've not wasted the time, sort of thing. Yeah. Would that be sort of the way of thinking as well?
Exactly that, and it's. Like I say, it's a needless pressure that's put upon yourself, because it's not something that really anybody's kind of thinking about. I mean, yeah, don't go out there and do a bad job, because then you will be kind of disrespecting that person. But at the same time, like, if you're going out there and you're just doing your best, that's all anyone can ask of you. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with your best?
I completely agree with that one, mate. So that's the end of part one, bud. We're going to go into part two. So this is where we're going to be delving into your struggles and battles with mental health. Just want to put a quick disclaimer out there, guys. The topic that myself and Joe are going to be talking about may get a bit deep. It might get a bit too much for some people that are watching. It can also hit quite close to home. So if anyone that's watching does struggle with mental health, or is having some unpleasant thoughts, whatever, there are organisations out there that can help you, such as the Mind Charity. You've got Samaritans as well. And then in the UK, which I'm part of, we have what's called Andy's Man Club, which, as we know, this month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. If you are struggling, there are groups out there, like I've just said, but then there's also individuals out there, such as your friends and family, and just people in general. If you are struggling, people will listen. You will find someone that will want to listen, because like I've said to countless amounts of my friends, I would rather carry the weight of your tears on my shoulder than carry the coffin at your funeral. Joe, do you have anything to add to that at all, mate? Is there anything that you would like to
say? Yeah, definitely speak out to like people, even if it's people that like you only know slightly, because sometimes that can add like a bit of like I don't know, like that barrier of like, oh, well, that openness of just like, well, you know, this person doesn't really know me that well, so I'm not going to see them that often, so I can just like, you know, let it all out, kind of thing. You have to be willing to talk to people and go through everything that you're going through in your head, just to lighten the load.
Yes, mate. So we'll start the questions for this next topic, mate. First one is, obviously, as we know, you've been quite open about your mental health journey. Can you share a bit about when you started first experiencing your struggles?
Um, I think like a lot of people, you don't really notice it until like you've been doing it for a few years, and you're just like, oh, I felt this way for a long time. And for me, that was I think that was when I started to see a bit of a downward tick on my career in terms of bookings, interest, and just overall kind of success in general.
So yeah, right. Sorry about that.
And I think that only through self-analyzing all of that have I been able to kind of like cope with it all.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So, the next question actually intertwines with that. So, in your career in the wrestling industry, what specific challenges related to your mental health have you faced, such as like performance anxiety, pressure, the travel, social media scrutiny, that sort of thing?
Well, I have quite a bit of social anxiety anyway, um, which is funny considering I go out there in my pants for hundreds of people. But like, but it's got to do with like I put myself into this character so that I'm able to perform. Um, I have kind of trouble talking sometimes. Like I can sometimes get like a bit of a stammer when I'm like high anxiety. But at the same time, if I'm like high adrenaline, that's fine. I can talk on the mic and that's okay. Um, and I think that goes hand in hand with the ADD that I have, because it's like anxiety is okay to deal with. No, adrenaline is okay to deal with. Anxiety is like, oh, avoid people at all costs. I'll see you later. But like a stimulant like anxiety starts to kind of calm me down a little bit.
Right. Okay. So was there a particular moment or period in your career where your mental health struggles felt particularly overwhelming, or was there a time where you felt as though your mental health was getting a bit too much?
Um, yeah, when I stopped getting booked from a promotion that I held quite dearly, um, that was a massive turn for me because I couldn't deal with it. And it's not like I can't deal with the idea that I'm not going to be booked. There's fucking hundreds of places that don't book me, but like, but like when that place didn't, it was somewhere that I sort of created a bit of a home into, and that I felt like, you know, had a special place for me. So by having that alienated, therefore being alienated from a lot of my friends in wrestling, so I'm not seeing these people that I'm used to seeing at least like once a month, or at least like, every so often, it played like a massive toll on me. I was at a point as well where I don't particularly talk about it a lot, but like when I stopped getting booked there, I was also going through like a few different things with my body. Like, my back was starting to be pulled out every 4 months, something like that. And it'd be out for 3 days. I wouldn't be able to walk because it'd be like a trapped nerve. And then I'd just like then come back in and do like the training that I'm supposed to do. So I'd like, wrestle the rampages and stuff like that. And I felt just kind of, I don't know, just kind of like distant from what I felt was like, a place of acceptance for me. So I felt kind of rejected from it. Because if I wasn't building towards this show, then I had no carrot at the end of the stick, which is another time where I would just go like, oh, well, fuck it. Like that's kind of like an all in or not at all attitude that I had at the time. It took COVID to get out of that, which a lot of people have negative experiences with COVID, but I actually had an all right time. Like I had the opportunity of not being near wrestling, which forced me to think what I'm going to do if I'm not going to wrestle, and having to forcefully be away from it is different to being injured and being away from it. When I was injured, I did my shoulder. I was itching to get back in. I wanted to be around it. Like I couldn't be away from it kind of thing. And I wanted to like come to sessions and just kind of watch and stuff like that. Because it felt too quiet without it. And then back into COVID and the lockdown and all that. That was great because I got to see that like it's not about the wrestling as such. It's more about the entertaining of people.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, mate. I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that as well. What coping mechanisms or strategies have you found most effective in managing your mental health?
I suppose really just like saying, well, if if I'm not doing more shows, then I can just get in the gym a little bit more, or going outside and walking as well. It did a lot for me. I started to even run at one point. That ended quite swiftly. But I think that as long as I'm kind of doing something physical, I'm okay. I tried jiu-jitsu out for a bit. Really enjoyed that. I actually really want to get back into it, so I'm trying to find the time at the moment because I also, as I've explained to you, like I've also got a job where I look after vulnerable kids, and that job helps me sometimes cope with the stresses of wrestling because I can have like a really bad time with wrestling, and maybe I'm not like achieving a lot there, but with working with the vulnerable kids, if I make some small wins through that week, like I got Jimmy to go to school for the week, or I helped Claire get eating more and stuff like that. It's like it's one of them things where it's like, I got some small wins there and I affected somebody's life. Doesn't really matter so much on the grand scheme of things that I'm not achieving much in wrestling. So those two kind of help me balance stuff out a little bit. I think I'm starting to get to a point where I feel I've done enough for my community side of stuff, and I'd like to do more on the entertaining side of stuff. So I think I'm probably going to make some kind of moves towards that. I am kind of making some moves towards that, but it's under wraps at the moment until I'm a bit further in.
So, the kids that you obviously support, do they know about your wrestling? Have you shown them any of your matches yet?
They know about wrestling, but I have the most unlucky thing ever that I've been working in healthcare for 15 years and I've not had one kid that likes wrestling.
Oh no.
I've turned one kid into a wrestling fan because I took him to North Wrestling. I took him to wrestling in Newcastle. Great shows. Bit of a plug for you. And through those two shows, she then became a fan because they were both on the same day, and it was kind of like a heavy wrestling day for her.
That's all right. So, if there's a wrestler or someone watching who is struggling with their mental health in silence, what would you say to them? What message would you give to them?
Try not to compare yourself to anybody, like at all. There's never ever going to be another Heartbreaker. There's never ever going to be another Stone Cold, or whoever your favorite wrestler is. There's never going to be another one of those. You just have to just take inspiration from the people that you can, and then build to something that is the first you, and that's it. All it has to be. It doesn't have to be complicated. Wrestling is simple. We're the ones that make it complicated. All it is just a fun time in your pants. That's all wrestling is. It's pantomime for men. That's all it was. And then women started to like it too. And everybody else, because it's just wrestling is for absolutely everybody. But that's all it really started out as, was just pantomime for guys. and well, do you know what? It started off as like a trick, really, didn't it? Like, yeah, just like, I'm gonna bet on myself. We're gonna have this fake fight, and we're both gonna make some money from it. So it's just like, it started out as just a circus rigged act, and then it got too big for the circus. So then it became its own thing. So that's all everybody is worrying this much over. Everybody's worrying this much. Don't need to be worrying this much about anything. Fuck it off. Just stick it in the fuck it bucket for later and worry about maybe this much. Up to here. Thing that you can deal with, you can breathe.
I think that's going to be the best analogy or description of wrestling that I've ever heard. That absolutely brilliant. I love that.
I don't think it will be. I don't even know how big or how popular I'm ever going to get, but it's one of them things where it's like, at the moment I really have fun with it after so long doing it, so I'm going to carry on doing it until I don't have fun with it anymore, and then we'll see what we get out of it on the way.
I think that's perfect, mate. I think that's the perfect sort of mentality to have towards it. Obviously, if you're loving what you're doing, then that's even better. And then once it gets to a point where you're like, I'm starting to not like it, then that's when you need to start thinking about stepping away. Because once you start not liking something, you kind of start to resent it, sort of thing. And then that's where mistakes can happen, botches can happen, what have you. And then the last thing you want to do is either hurt yourself, hurt the person you're working with, hurt the crowd, hurt the referee, whoever it is, sort of thing. Just to go on to the next question, how do you believe that the professional wrestling industry as a whole can better support its performers' mental well-being?
That's so hard because there's so many moving parts that would have to change to be regarded as like managing everybody's mental health. Because if you do one thing, you're not doing something else. If you're not doing something else, you're not doing one thing. But like, really, just not being aware of clicks, and not really being open to outside people coming in, because that's how people's mental health starts to deteriorate, because you're making something that is supposed to be a community into just smaller communities, and they're locking everybody else out. and that way nobody gets to get anywhere without somebody else in say so and kind of gatekeeping the whole thing. There shouldn't be gatekeeping, shouldn't be like cliques and stuff like that in wrestling, because it's not, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, you never know who someone's going to be, so be nice to everybody. And at the same time, like, not in a, that's not even like in an opportunistic kind of way. That's also in a way of like, this person could be the reason why you end up excelling even further and getting into, you know, whatever contract you want to get into. So it's like, by stifling anybody, you ruin the chance of them accelerating you.
I agree. I completely agree with that, buddy. So, what advice would you offer to fans who want to support wrestlers who are open about their mental health struggles? Obviously, as we know, the online community, especially in wrestling, it is quite cutthroat and quite tribalistic. Obviously, there's people that like WWE that hate AEW. There's people like AEW that don't like WWE, and there's quite a bit of a sort of like a civil war between wrestling fans. And then there's quite a lot of people that, as we've seen recently, people like Cora Jade have been trolled online. You've also got the problems with Roxanne Perez having the Twitter account named "Is Roxanne Perez Dead Yet?" and the death threats. What advice would you give to fans who are wanting to support these wrestlers who have been open about their mental health?
I mean, I would say just kind of like, keep filling the comment sections of things, keep liking stuff, keep sharing stuff, because the more interaction somebody sees coming up in wrestling, the more encouraged they're going to be to work on their career and carry on, because this job becomes hard when you're on the upper side of the indies, let alone on the mid side or in the trenches somewhere. Like, it's hard enough to kind of get ahead, and when you're posting stuff and getting kind of zero reactions from it, it's like, it discourages you from carrying on to post and carrying on to kind of do stuff. But like, at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it's if somebody's not making good content, not making good content at the same time. So it's a supply and demand kind of thing. I think it's more for the wrestlers to think of this as a market stall, as like, we're all kind of different brands of drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, stuff like that. And what can I do next to make people buy more of my product, of me? That's the most impersonal and emotionless way that you can kind of come at wrestling, to help your mental health. I don't think it's kind of up to the fans to support the mental health of the wrestlers. I think it's up to the wrestlers to kind of realize the responsibility of being in the public and to being a role model for people, and to making an example.
Completely agree with that one, mate. So how do you balance the need to portray a strong character in the ring with the reality of your personal mental health journey?
Erin was always something that I'd ended up pouring a lot of like my own negative emotions into anyway. So I get a lot of kind of positive feedback emotionally from playing Erin. Once I've done it, I'm like, there we go, and kind of calm down now. And you know, I've forgotten about the guy who pulled out in front of me a couple of days ago. You know, like, I've forgotten about that person who wasn't very kind of polite to me the other day. I've forgotten about the worries and stresses of my kind of day job and the emotional toll that takes, because I'm doing this instead.
Okay, mate, that's brilliant. So going on to the last two questions. First one is, what role has wrestling played in your overall mental health journey? Has it been a source of strength? Has it been a challenge, or has it been a bit of both?
I think wrestling is always going to be everything and more. I think that wrestling is always going to be something that's multi-dynamic and coming at you from all different angles, because everybody's a different flavor of ice cream, and sometimes that flavor of ice cream is more popular than your flavor. So there's always going to be an emotional toll, and there's always going to be a challenge that comes with it, because like I said earlier, you have to be a role model, you have to be a good example, you have to be something that may be above your remit, intellectually, or above your remit emotionally. Can you juggle all of this kind of stuff and also do a full-time job, and also maybe study for something as well, because you want a better job in the future, or fall back on if wrestling doesn't work out? Like, there's so many moving parts to being an up-and-coming wrestler, let alone actually being in the public eye and being paparazzi and stuff. If you are an up wrestler at the top of the game, kind of like, selling merchandise here, there, and everywhere. So there won't be a time where wrestling isn't stressful and wrestling isn't full of pressure. So the best thing that we can do is just take care of ourselves, because that's the only thing that we can control. When it comes to wrestling, it's all just noise. If you see it as a big playground, it'll help you deal with it emotionally better, because that's all it is. It's just a playground, but there's no dinner lady to call to sort stuff out.
I love that. So, playing off what you just said about different flavors of ice cream, what flavor ice cream would you describe yourself as?
Weird. That's basically it. Like, I suppose, like with Erin at its base, if the more uncomfortable that I can make you, that's kind of what I'm going for. Because, like, I think that it's good to make people enjoy stuff. It's good to make people hate you. But if people are a little bit frightened and scared of you in a weird way, then that kind of catches them off guard. But Erin, as he kind of stands now in FFW, I'm trying to add layers to increase his popularity. So we'll see what kind of branding I can kind of put on Erin to push him forward in that sense, and see what I can do physically to make his matches more interesting and exciting. Yeah.
I'm definitely excited to see what the future holds for you, mate. Whenever someone asks me the question about what flavour ice cream, I always say rum raisin, because everyone throws up after they eat it.
Yeah.
Just gets a laugh. So, just coming down to the last question, matey. What are your future goals and aspirations being professional wrestling and also personal?
For professional wrestling, like, I've always had the goal to one day work for ICW, one day work for Progress. ICW holds a lot to me, because, like, of how many of my friends have gone into it and stuff, and just how long I've been kind of following it, since, like, I was kind of up and coming myself. Always to kind of come back to North as well. I think that would be something that would be very special to me. I don't know if fans would even remember me or anything, but, like, it would be nice to kind of go back to where I kind of debuted that character. For FFW, it would be to work towards some kind of huge moment for Erin, and to see what's the pinnacle of that. And then, like, personal life, I'm at the moment I'm looking at deputy manager positions. Also looking at like, possible future plans of like, where I'm going to go in terms of traveling, and see if that kind of coincides with wrestling as well. Especially if I get to wrestle somewhere like, in the USA again or something like that. But really, I'm at a position in life where I don't seem to have a clear path, and I'm happy about that. I think that whenever I've laid out my own path, I've made it too easy for myself to fail. I think the times where I've got the most done is when I had no clear path that I was on. So there was no pressure there to actually like get something done in a short amount of time.
Okay. Fantastic, mate. So that's all the questions for today, buddy. I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on, Joe. I really appreciate it, mate. It's been a while that we've been trying to book this in and what have you. We've both had a few scheduling conflicts, but obviously can't help it because we're both working full time. Just want to say thank you to everyone for watching. I'll put your links to your pages in the description below, bud. We'll talk about that after. But is there anything that you want to say to anybody that's watching at the moment to close us out?
Yeah, just if you're a fan, keep sharing stuff, keep supporting local companies and pushing them out there to new audiences. And if you're a kind of wrestler coming into this, then just don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Fantastic. Love the way to end it. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys, and we'll see you later.